Hello and welcome to the Mum Boss Method podcast. I hope you are good on whatever day of the week it is that you're listening to this. One of my clients posted in our community over the weekend that she received the following comment. You never get time to rest properly when you have a health and fitness goal. And it really got me thinking, and I posted it up on my social media and I got a couple of like really similar comments. So I've just picked on a few to read out because I was really I was really interested on other people's perspectives on this. So what was this response? I feel this is partly true when you're a mum, a wife, etc., but also believe making healthy habits becomes normal, right? One of my clients, when I posted it, she said, why don't you get time to rest and relax? You're in charge of your own schedule. So I personally don't think this statement is true. And I actually think it's one of the most damaging beliefs that I see women hold on to, especially as mums and especially in menopause. So I'm going to take the time of this podcast to kind of go through my thoughts on this. I love a bit of challenge. I love to be, challenged on my thoughts and my views. So feel free to challenge me, make some comments, send me a message, be nice about it. But let's start. My kind of starting position here is that this kind of comment quietly tells you that you have to choose between progress and peace, and I just don't buy into that. And to break this down and to give you my perspective on it, I need to define a few things. I need to define health and I need to define rest. So I'm going to start by defining health, because health isn't just about your size. Actually, health is physical, emotional, mental, social, environmental. I'm sure I've missed something from that. But if you look up the World Health Organization's definition of health, it's not just about your body, right? It's the ability to live your life with energy, with self-trust, with capacity, not just the absence of illness or a number on a scale. So health might look like having energy for your days, or in my view, it looks like having energy for your days, not just getting through them, right? The majority of the time, because you know what, sometimes we just have to get through the days. Like, as a small example, at the time of recording this, it's just, it's 3 p.m. and I've been up just shy of 12 hours because I woke up at 3:30 this morning. So, most of the days we don't want to just get through them. We want to have energy for them. It means recovering well, right? Not just physically, but emotionally as well, because life has its ups and downs. And so we want to be physically recovered, but we also want to be emotionally recovered. It means being able to rest without guilt, without that feeling of, oh, I should be doing something else. And I know that's a really hard one for women to wrestle with, and we're going to come back to my definition of rest as well. It's about keeping your promises to yourself most of the time. That's what I think health is. It's moving your body because you get to, because it's able to, not because you hate your body or you feel you should or have to. It's eating in a way that fuels your life, not controls it. And it's feeling resilient when life gets hard, not falling apart. To me, all of those things, they're like the ethos of what I teach women. Okay, health is not constant optimization, and I'm going to give you a personal example of this in a little while, right? It's not exhaustion dressed up as discipline. It's not having a body that you have to manage or punish. It's not all or nothing behaviour, and it's not a temporary phase you do before life then starts again. And I believe that this is especially true as women, as mums, and especially in menopause, which is obviously my point of view, my current situation, and the situation of many of the women that I work with. So health is capacity. It's capacity to cope, it's capacity to recover, it's capacity to enjoy, it's capacity to keep going. And if what you're doing in the name of health is shrinking your life, your energy, or your confidence, then that's not health. It's survival mode. Okay, and my belief is that you don't need to be doing those things. You don't need willpower. You don't need to be forced. You need to set standards for yourself. This is what I talk about with my clients all the time, setting standards for themselves. So having a health and fitness goal can fit into any and all of this that I've just talked about. But if you really break it down, being healthy and fit isn't a one and done. It's not something that we do for a short period of time. And I think this is the main problem with, firstly, that statement and the thinking behind that statement. Which to me boils down to that you only exercise when you have a health and fitness goal, which I've taken to mean a fat loss goal, right? But it doesn't have to be a fat loss goal. It could be, I want to get stronger. And this is why we have so many women who have terrible relationships with food, with exercise, and their bodies. Because we associate health and fitness with punishment. We picture extremes, dieting, grinding, overtraining. And so many women that I work with and I speak to have only ever experienced the all or nothing health attempts. So, of course, rest will feel like the complete opposite of that. And here's the problem. If your version of working on your health doesn't include rest, recovery, and softness, that's not a health plan. That's self-abandonment with Gymshark on, as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's not me being mean about Gymshark. Really like Gymshark, so hi. So we've defined health. Let's define rest. And listen, by the way, I know this is a really difficult one to grapple with, and it is one that I have struggled with myself in lots of forms. Firstly, like just being in my own company, understanding what true rest was as opposed to numbing, and then finding those moments of rest, which are super important when you don't sleep very well, by the way, which is my life, that I then don't feel guilty about, right? So a lot of women think they're resting, but they're actually not. They're they're just sedating themselves. So scrolling your phone, binging Netflix, zoning out, that stops you doing. So it might stop you doing the washing or the cleaning or working, but it actually doesn't help you recover. Okay, now, again, an assumption I've made here is that the comment made by this person is talking about rest in the true sense of the form, i.e. talking about actual rest, relaxation, stuff that calms your nervous system, okay? But of course, I don't know this person, and maybe what they meant was it eats into your personal time so you have less time to like watch Netflix. I don't know, right? I've made an assumption. But as I said, things like scrolling your phone, binging Netflix, zoning out, staring at a screen, they stop you doing, they don't help you recover. Your nervous system, when you're doing those things, is still switched on. Your brain is still processing. Your body is still braced. So yes, you might be off, you might not be working or cooking or washing up, but you're not resting. Okay, and you might be telling yourself this is what you do to relax. You might be telling yourself this is your version of rest, but it's not. Okay, quality rest is anything that actually restores your capacity, not distracts you from your life. If you don't feel calmer, clearer, less reactive, more grounded, it probably wasn't rest. If you've sat there doing something that you've told yourself is rest, and then you're like, oh, I've got half an hour to get everything done before I then need to be in bed, actually you're not resting. So what I'm not saying, is that you can never watch Netflix. What I'm not saying is you can never look at your phone. Okay, of course, that's fine. But it's light recovery. It's not deep rest. Real rest looks quieter than you think, okay? And also often smaller than you think. So it can be sitting still for 5 minutes without input. And by without input, I mean without someone talking to you, without looking at a screen, without having something in your ears. It can be a walk without headphones, which is something that I try to do at least once a day. It can be going to bed earlier without your phone. Again, this is something I have promised myself. I have a date with my bed at 8 p.m. tonight because of my poor sleep over the last week. It can be stretching without rushing. I've been doing a meditation course recently, and honestly, the exercise I need to do first thing in the morning and last thing at night takes me no longer than 2.5 minutes. That's rest. It can be letting your thoughts land, sitting with them instead of numbing them. It's distraction, not, distraction is not restoration. And if your version of rest always involves a screen, that's not a discipline problem. It's a sign that you're overloaded and you are probably just trying to distract yourself. And so I think this statement of I can't rest properly while I'm working on my health, I actually think what we mean is I've never learned how to rest in a way that truly restores me. And that's not a reason to stop your health and fitness goals. It's a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn. Sorry, I need a little drink break because I'm very animated in this situation. So we've defined health, we've defined rest, right? I believe that the real issue actually isn't rest. It's actually the way we view and talk about choice. Because rest doesn't appear when life is calm. Because really, when is life calm? It's something you choose inside the fullness of your life. And those choices come with trade-offs. If you choose to work on your health, there will be compromises. You might scroll less. You might need to go to bed earlier. You might need to say no more often. Some things might get left undone, right? I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm going to give you an example that's nothing to do with health and fitness, right? I obviously work at home, and I've worked at home since the start of COVID, okay? And then left my corporate job, and now I do this full time. And before I worked from home, I worked in Watford and sometimes all over Europe. But I rarely worked at home. Like for the last, I think, year before COVID, I worked at home on Fridays, but not always. And anyway, so that's what I did. I mostly was in the office before COVID. So putting a wash on during the day was not an option. Now, I might set the washing so that it was ready for when I walked in the door, just like I might set the slow cooker to have dinner ready for when we got through the door. But when I was working in Watford, I couldn't do 3 loads of washing in a day. Okay, so one of the things that I now do is, unless it absolutely needs to be done, I don't do wash loads during the day. And that's a compromise, because if I busy myself with wash loads during the day, you might think, what's the problem, Chrissy? Surely that's a benefit of working from home. But honestly, if I'm doing even just 2 loads of washing during the day, that's sorting the washing, putting the machine on, listening out for it to finish, hanging it up, putting another, all of that stuff. And if the area is full, I have to empty that before I can hang the next lot out. Like, that takes time. That eats into my day, and that's a compromise. So if there's loads of washing on, and I say to myself, loads of washing to be done, and I say to myself, I need to do some washing today, I need to make a choice. I'm either going to do the washing in the evening, which is my rest time because I do my working out in the morning, or and then that eats into my rest time, or I do my washing during the daytime and that eats into my work time, right? And it's the same as, I put the dishwasher on this morning, but I will be emptying that when I've finished work, which means that my breakfast plate and my lunch bowl are sitting on the side. And that's a compromise, right? Because, yeah, it would be lovely to have those things cleared away, but that eats into my daytime, right? So it's a situation, it's choices, small choices and compromises and sacrifices that we make, right? So like I said, there will be compromises if you choose to work on your health. You might scroll less. You might need to go to bed earlier. You might need to say no more often. You might need to leave some things undone. That's not punishment. That's prioritization. Every part of life involves sacrifice or compromise. The question is never, what will I sacrifice? The question is, what will I sacrifice and for what? Because if you don't choose consciously, you still sacrifice. You just sacrifice your energy, your patience, your confidence, your health, and you do that quietly over time without actually realizing. So I think you need to, if this is something that you have viewed, and this is often an objection that I have, or a barrier that women come to me with, is I just don't have time to work on my health and fitness, right? Because they see that as, if I work on my health and fitness, I won't have time to do all of the other things I need to do. And they're probably already putting rest at the bottom of their to-do list, because you're always at the bottom of your to-do list, right? But what I'm trying to show you here is that life is just a series of choices and compromises, and it is about prioritization. So a bit more on rest then. I want you to stop seeing rest as the opposite of discipline, because it's not something that you earn once everything's done. Because come on, your list is never done. Your list for that hour might get done, but then you've got a nice to do and a once in a lifetime to do situation. But actually, rest is part of how, what I would call hotter than hell women live. Because when you feed rest into your day, you realise it's not stopping, it's actually supporting you. And it's what allows consistency instead of burnout. It's what allows capacity instead of collapse. If your version of discipline only includes pushing, it will eventually take more from you than it can give. So I want you to see rest as not the opposite of discipline, but actually that it requires discipline to rest, and that you resting doesn't make you less committed. It protects it. Yesterday, I went to the gym in the morning and I took the dog for a walk, and then I needed to go into town to get a few bits and pieces, and I came home and made lunch for all of us, and then I took a couple of hours to just rest on the sofa with my sewing. And yes, the TV was on in the background, but it was a choice between, do I do a bit of sewing, do I do a bit of reading? I was worried that reading would make me fall asleep, so I did a bit of sewing. There was a bit of noise on in the background. I barely looked at my phone for a couple of hours, and I felt like my cup was full. And then in the afternoon, I could do a bit more work, and I did 30 minutes of cardio, right? And so that I felt really refreshed for just doing that. But it takes effort to do that, because believe me, doing that for 2 hours, I could have spent that time doing the washing, working. There's plenty I could have done in the house, but no, I chose to do something that is restful for me. And speaking from a menopausal point of view, I think this is really, really important. It matters more than ever. The answer isn't pushing harder. It's also not doing less forever. I don't believe that once you hit 40, you need to just do less. That's absolutely the opposite of what I stand for. But it is about learning how to work with your body and not against it. And, this does mean training with intent. And I'm going to come back to that when I talk about my personal kind of fat loss journey at the moment, with recovery built in, with emotional rest, with mental space, with letting go of an identity that says, I have to suffer to succeed. Health done properly at this time of your life gives you more energy, not less. And that's exactly what yesterday afternoon did for me. This intentional rest. This intentional time where Tom was doing more tax return stuff, Charlie was playing with his friends online, there was background noise, and I intentionally chose not to speak for a couple of hours, not to look at my phone for a couple of hours, and just focus on something creative. And the reason I say that this matters more than ever in menopause is not only because of the symptoms that you're experiencing, but because up until this point, and still at this point, you are giving so much to other people. So learning how to take that time back and take those activities back, especially if your children are getting older and you find you have more time to yourself, where you feel like you should be filling that time. This is a really important time to learn how to rest, how to be with yourself, and how to do something that gives back to yourself. And I know some of you might be listening, need a sip, and like wishing for a tick list of things that help you rest. And it just doesn't work like that, because what is restful to me is going to be different to you. And also, what is restful to me on one day is going to be completely different to another day. So let me give you a little bit of an example of my life at the minute, right? So I'm currently in a fat loss phase ahead of a holiday to Barbados at the beginning of February. Now, this has followed Christmas, obviously, because we're in the middle of January now, but also a 4-month muscle building phase for me, where I was actively eating more to gain that muscle. And as often, it's really hard to not eat more and not gain fat. So I gained a little bit of fat. So coming into the new year, I had a relatively short period of time, just 5 weeks, to drop some fat so that I feel amazing on the beach in Barbados. At the moment, I have that specific fat loss goal, and I'm going to come back to that. But before this fat loss goal, so before the 29th of December, across the summer and into my muscle building phase, I was still working out 4 times a week. I was still doing some cardio every week. I was still aiming for 10,000 steps a day. I was still focusing on rest and relaxation along with these things. Why? Because that's what will keep me healthy. If we circle right back around to the beginning, that's what will keep me healthy in all of the different guises that health comes into. That's what helps me maintain my weight. That's also what helps me to relax and manage my stress, and manage my menopause symptoms. Exercise is, a non-controversial. It's one of the only non-controversial ways of managing menopause symptoms. It's also a research-backed way of managing stress. Okay, so I was still super active before I was in a fat loss phase. And in fact, I've been super active for 14, 15 years. Now, in a fat loss phase that's quite short term, which mine is at the moment, I'm being quite aggressive at the moment. I'm being, when I get back from Barbados, although I will be going into prepping for a photo shoot, I won't be being this aggressive. I've got a specific time frame involved, and I know, as an aside, I don't normally say, just do the fat loss. I normally say, don't just do the fat loss for a specific event like a holiday or a wedding or whatever. But what I mean by that is I don't ever take on people who just come to me for short-term fat loss. Like, that's not who I work with. So I've got 5 weeks. I've got a specific time frame, and this has meant that I have reduced my calories and I have increased my cardio, right? And yes, this means I've had to find that time from somewhere, because it's that increase in cardio that has kind of really eaten into my time. And I've had to find it. But does that mean I have no relaxation time? No. In fact, recently it means I've had to focus even more on it, especially in this last 8 days, because my sleep, as I mentioned earlier, I've been awake since 3:30, has been so bad. But that's quality relaxation, not distraction, not numbing. Okay? And it comes back to that piece around the choices that I have made. Okay, so as an example, I talked about yesterday, I went to the gym in the morning. I had some bits to do in town straight after going to the gym. We had lunch as a family. I had some bits of work to do. Now, I chose to go to the gym early in the morning. I was in the gym at 7 a.m. on a Sunday because I had things to do that day. But I also specifically chose to do my cardio a bit later on in the day when I knew I'd have a bit more energy, because the gym session was quite hard, right? I choose to work out in the morning, and yes, that fits my circumstances. I have, my husband is at home to be with my son. My son is also nearly 15, and hopefully at some point soon will get himself up for school instead of one of us needing to wake him up. So I do have that flexibility. In fairness, I've always had that flexibility because I've always gone to the gym first thing, and Tom has, on the days I'm at the gym, Tom has been here for Charlie. That's just the arrangement we have, and he does some of his gym sessions in the evening. So I'm here at the bookend, right? Yes, I have to make some choices around this. Yes, last week was so busy that I didn't have one evening to sit. Normally I have a Tuesday to sit with Tom and we'll catch up on the TV shows, and that's my one TV night a week. We didn't have that last week. But I found my relaxation in lots of other ways, because I had a bath, I went for nice walks, I did some crafting, I baked some bread. I'm looking at other quality ways. I'm doing a meditation course, I did some yoga. So it's really important to see that, yeah, last week was really busy. Yes, I'm in a fat loss phase. But for me, it wasn't, well, I either do my cardio or I rest. No, I just have to make some compromises and some sacrifices to fit them all in, right? So I think it's really dangerous for women to make this takeaway. They hear you can't rest properly whilst you're working on your health. What they actually take from that is I can only have one or the other. So they don't start, or they pause, or they keep restarting, or they quit, or they wait for years and years and years, when actually what they needed was a different standard and a different approach and a fuller definition of both health and fitness and rest, instead of having to choose between both. So I guess what I want you to take away from this is that you don't need to stop working on your health to rest. They're not mutually exclusive. One works with the other. They have to. What you do need is a version of health that includes rest. One that understands choice, that understands compromise and intentional sacrifice. If your plan requires burnout, it's not a plan. It's a warning sign. The goal isn't to collapse to the finish line. Like, I'm not going to work myself so hard in the next 2 weeks that I get on that plane to Barbados and have to sleep for the whole week and miss the beach anyway. The goal is to live now. But you know what's going to enhance your living now? Is being healthy and having a routine that includes the activities that keep you healthy, and that one of the activities that keeps you healthy is rest and relaxation and recovery. So I want you to reframe this feeling that you have to have one or the other, and that might require you to rethink your schedule a bit, rethink your routine, rethink what you're happy to compromise and maybe even sacrifice on. And if you want help to do that, one of the things that I am really great at doing is helping women to find the time to put the healthy habits that get them to their goals into their busy schedules. One of my clients at the moment, we are just working on small 10-minute blocks of exercise, because exercise doesn't have to mean an hour in the gym. And, you know, she's lost 2 kilograms in the last 2 weeks because we are just working on slotting in those small slices of time that help her get to her goal. So if you want help with doing that, then come and find me on social media. I'm the Mum Boss Method on Instagram and Chrissy Hiller on Facebook, or you can find me on my website. I would love to help you. I'm just looking for my heated blanket switch now because it's gone off and I'm cold. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please share it. Please rate, review, subscribe, all those things that they say. And I will see you in next week's episode, where I have part 2 with the wonderful Talia Zamora. You may remember her from last year when we talked about ADHD and menopause. Have an awesome week, everyone, and I'll see you soon.